Today I thought I'd start a little repair project. It's kind of been on the back burner for a while, and part of the reason is I've been blessed with so many repairs for others. Um, and but I recently have done several Alco repairs for some other folks, for customers, and one of those was a 5-digit. And some questions were asked about 5 digits, and so I went through my repair projects, this being one of them, that were 5 digits. And as I try to do, I try to provide a little bit of helpful information about engines in terms of what years they were produced and some interesting details about them. And this one's kind of really stuck out. And before I get into any of that, I just want to say thank you to the Dave H family. Dave left us for glory a few years ago, and he was a American Flyer friend of mine. And I assisted the family after his passing on trying to pull some of his Flyer items together for their grandkids, as well as some of the better pieces for sale. But he had just tote after tote after tote of Flyer stuff, and it literally was kind of tossed into totes. I mean, it just was pell-mell, just in there. And so I could see a few things, but I didn't go through everything, so I didn't honestly know what all was in there. And as a thank you, the family just offered that for a very, very reasonable price, that I take a bunch of stuff home. So I've been slowly trying to work through what came home with me, and this is one of those pieces that I really just didn't honestly give it a second look. There's another, well, I'll just show you. Here's the kind of the clip from my comments on the progression of 3 to 5-digit diesels. The question was asked recently when I showed this engine here, this 5-digit Santa Fe. That the comment was made, I just haven't seen 5-digit Alco Diesels. Well, it got me thinking. I've got some project engines here in front of us that kind of might explain some of the transitions that Flyer went through. First of all, we have here a 4-digit. The 4-digit numbering sequence began to shift in 1958. And if you want to dive deep into that, you'll find that there's some variation within when it started and when it ended, depending on engines and cars and whatnot. But you can see here we have 2 Santa Fe freight units, both in blue and yellow. One's a 3-digit and one is a 5-digit. Now this happens to be a B unit, so non-motor, and this one would be an A unit, double motor. But you can see with this 5-digit, I happen to know this one is from 58, and you can see we've got one rivet here holding the steps, and there's metal steps. But then sometime soon after that, they begin to move away from the extra metal steps and went with more of a molded kind of step. So if we zoom in here, this particular version of the Northern Pacific Alco was produced in 1958 as well. But pretty early on in 58, they went away from the metal steps and started doing this molded. They also filled in the portals. So you can see here we've got open portals with lenses in them, kind of like you see on the front behind the headlight. But then again, these are ways to cut costs and whatnot. Now what's unfortunate about this guy is here we've got a broken skirt at the front of the shell. Again, not insurmountable, but certainly unfortunate. So this would have a 2-step reverse unit in. This 5-digit has a 2-step reverse unit in. You can see we've got just one power truck though now, and this one is not. So that's another thing that they did to cheapen up their production costs. Then above it here is a Missouri Pacific, and oftentimes these Alcos came as an AA set or an ABA set. But for some reason, when you got into the late production runs, they went to just a single A unit. And again, we've got a 2-step reverse unit, But now again, we've got just one power truck. This one happens to be in the back, and this is just pickups up here. According to Doyle, this one is a very, very rare engine. This has a scarcity of 5. This has a scarcity of 5. I'm not sure what this one is, probably 4 or 5. And that's, again, from 1 to 8, 1 being super common, 8 being very hard to find. And so I was a little surprised to see that this guy is one of those that's really, really hard to find. And what that means is there just weren't many produced, weren't many sold. This is 6364, and you can see we've got a foil, it's not very good shape, foil sticker on the front. Not really much else, claim to fame on this one in terms of looking much different than its kin, other than, as you can see, we've got the molded steps, and then we've got the filled-in portal. So that's the backstory. So, this one is unique for different reasons, but the fact that Doyle says this one's kind of hard to find kind of caught my eye, and I thought, I really should go through this guy, see what it would take to get it operational. It's got some playware, it's got a bunch of scrapes and scratches. They're all small, so, it's not terrible. The decal here on the front is a foil sticker, and it's seen better days. I did a quick check, and I don't find that anyone carries the foil replacements, at least what I could find. I'll have to do some more checking, because it'd be nice to replace that with a foil one versus some of the gray ones that I saw listed. If you out there have any connections for foil Missouri Pacific front wing stickers, let me know. But yeah, this is a single motor, 2-step reverse from 63, 64. So really, really getting to the end. We do have a little bit of a boo-boo here. This step is trying hard to hang on, but it's going to need some help. But aside from that, I don't really see anything that concerns me. That's interesting. We got a big yellow splotch of paint. I'm sure that's from the factory. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this guy open and see what there's to see. All right, welcome back. So this is one of the things I was kind of curious about, is there a stamp in there? And if I turn it just right, and I don't think this is going to show up on the camera because the lighting has to hit it just right. I see a 9, a 6, and a tail of what appears to be a 4, because a 3 wouldn't have a straight tail. I tried to, kind of gently rub over that just in case, it would become more clear, and it doesn't. So to me, I'm pretty confident the shell is a 1964. Yeah, it's got to be 64. So kind of cool there. Unfortunately, this looks like it's probably been here in the Midwest, where we deal with a lot of humidity in the summer times, sometimes in the wintertime too, and you can see we've got some rust creeping in on this guy. It's also interesting, here's our headlight, and we've got one wire going to headlight. Now the 1965 digit that I worked on last week for a customer had 2 wires, and one of those wires I believe went here above the front truck, which I can see there's solder there, but there's no wire. I don't know if that was a cost-cutting move, as we're really near the end of things here for Flyer, or if it somehow got disconnected. The weird thing is, if it got disconnected, I don't see evidence of a loose wire, hanging. But this is what shocked me. Now that's wide open, but it's running. And let's go ahead and drop our reverse lever here. Oh my word, it actually reverses. Now, if you would have said, Austin, this thing will run, I would have said, no chance. So that's amazing. Well, that's good to know. It means, we got good bones. So a couple things that I'm finding fascinating. Number one, even though it doesn't maybe look like it, all the oil grease that I'm pulling out of here is still fresh. And most of it's got very little discoloration to it. So that's fascinating. It's just, I don't know if it was put on recently before the engine was stored or what the case is there, but maybe it's from the factory and still pliable. Could be. I found one of the drive wheels moving back and forth on the spline axle. So I've added a little bit of thread lock on there, and I'm going to leave that set overnight to make sure it's nice and cured. Um, then I'm going to have to pick both of these traction tires or traction bands out. I can see rust around them. They're cracked. They're hard as a rock. So I'm going to have to replace those. Uh, when I when I was pulling the motor apart, I was like, wait a minute, we're missing a wire here to the field. So here on these late models, it almost returned back to what they did with pre-war fields, where there's only one wire to them, and then they use the ground of the frame chassis for the other side. So I guess kind of going back to the origins there. Um, just also interesting, all the wires, I'm sure this is original from the factory, black, very small gauge, but also, again, as I said, very simple. Just, again, making every cost-cutting effort to trim down their overhead, it looks like they could. So kind of interesting to see the progression of things. Well, we're back here with a little bit of an update. First of all, we got power happening. What all that's been done since the last clip was I replaced some really rotten traction tires, gone through the motor, cleaned, lubed everything. But again, this is one of it's single-handedly the newest stock American Flyer engine I've ever worked on, being from 54 or 64. And so there was just very little to do. Other than it was hard getting screws loose because they've never been taken out before. Um, I did add an additional ground from the front here up to the reverse unit. Everything was working fine, but I just not a big fan. Not a big fan of using the frame as one of the loops in the electrical system. I know it's been done forever, and there's no reason to think it wouldn't last forever, but I got it apart, so that's what I did. Another thing I did was I added an LED. So this hangs like this and should shoot nicely right into the diffuser at the front of the shell. And that will give me constant lighting at lower speeds. Last but not least, and you saw this if you were watching some of the work I did on a recent Santa Fe from 1960. When they got into the latter years of production, the fronts or the single motor units that had the motor in the back up front would have a kind of a spring-loaded washer assembly. So you've got a washer below here, and then you've got, let's see if I zoom that and get that in clear for you. There we go. Got a washer below, then a washer above, and then this copper piece that's spring-loaded, spring washer basically, with a clip to hold everything together. And in both the Santa Fe engine and this one, once I got to the part where I'm trying to service the front end, no amount of lubrication will get this thing to free up. It spins 360, but it's not loose. And so the only way to get it loose is to actually remove one of these washers. And now it's going to be loose. But with the washer in place, I had to exert some force to turn it, and I just don't know how that thing's going to ever track very well if it takes that much force by hand to turn it. Because this engine doesn't have a lot of weight to it, so the chances of the front coming off the track at every opportunity, I think, are pretty high. There was a little bit of rust on the frame. Remove that and then use some blackening chemicals on that. And then I've covered everything, or I should say rubbed everything down with some mineral spirits.